Hello everyone, I'm Ganesh Shekhar on behalf of IAS Super 90 to discuss with you the next chapter of Class 6th Polity NCRT. And this chapter is about government. So before we proceed with the text of the book, uh, what if I ask you, what do you mean by government? So when I say government, in order to define government, there are certain aspects that must come to our minds. And there are two aspects through which we can attempt to define what is a government. First one, what is the purpose of a government? Why do governments exist? Different countries have different governments. And the second part would be, what is the purpose of the existence of a government? First, why they are there, and second, what they aim to do when they are in power. So, trying to address the first question, we'll come to book very soon, but this is some introduction which I want to give you beforehand knowledge of what we are attempting to achieve through these modules. So, why is a government elected, or why is a government formed? It can be elected, it can be nominated. There are other methods that we will subsequently see in our sessions. Government is there to take decisions on behalf of us, on behalf of you and me. Why so? Because all of us cannot take decisions amongst us ourselves. And for a country like India, such a big country, such a multilingual and so much of diversity, which we have seen in the earlier chapter, it would be increasingly difficult if every individual starts taking his or her own decision for everything. So we outsource these decisions, and every country does that. In modern times, every country does that. Just that the form of government differs from one country to the other, though most of the countries in contemporary world are democratic. So what we do is that we outsource some of our decision making capacities, some of our decision making process to our governments. Now the second one is the function, which we shall see through this chapter. So let's begin this chapter. So here we are. This is the unit of your NCRT book, and it says government, class 6 NCRT. Again, nice cartoons given here. And it also starts with the same question, what is government? And here you see the various snippets over here. That Supreme Court can have 5 more judges. Government fixes price of onion, says no shortage in market. Government sought to protect rights of organized workers. So if you read all these highlighted portions, what are they? They are nothing but a reflection of the policies that the government has taken, decisions of the government, the policies of the government, the functioning of the government. So like I said earlier, a government is what a government does. So why do we need government? Here we have trying to understand that through this chapter. Every country needs a government to make decisions and get things done. As I said, that we have outsourced some of our decision to our governments. These can be decisions about where to build roads and schools, or how to reduce the price of onions when they get too expensive, or any other commodity, or ways to increase the supply of electricity, or any other service it can be. Just few examples are given here. Government also takes action on many social issues. For example, it has several programs to help the poor. There is a more than a dozen poverty alleviation program that the current government is undertaking. So there are other important things like running postal and railway services, and the government also has the job of protecting the boundaries, the security boundaries of the country, and maintaining peaceful relations with other country. It is responsible for ensuring that all its citizens have enough to eat and have good health facilities. When there are natural disasters like the tsunami or an earthquake or outbreak of an epidemic like coronavirus, then it is the government that mainly organizes aid and assistance for the affected people. So if I try to sum it up, whatever we have read in the first chapter of this book from this unit, the government, that a government exists to take care of its people. There can be no denying this fact, and no government will claim to the contrary. No government, even one of the most authoritative government, even the Chinese government or the North Korean government would say that we are here to take care of our people. Now, we can disagree on that because we are a democracy, but most of the governments, they will always claim, like we saw the functions, that government ought to protect us both from the outside enemy, and if there is an internal epidemic, a pandemic which has swept the world, what else? Government must decide which commodity would be sold, would be selling at what price, where the roads would be built, how the services like electricity or other things would be delivered at what rate. So these are the major policy decisions that government take, keeping in mind the general welfare of the country, general welfare of the citizens of the country. Why I'm saying general welfare? Because you cannot please everyone. There is a famous law which you will come across somewhere during your course of preparation, Pareto's theory. Pareto was a welfare economist, and he said that there is this 80-20 principle. Whatever you do, you can only please 80% people, 20% will always crib. And to a large extent, this is true. That is why I said that government intends to benefit the citizens at a general level. That whatever I do, let there be maximum good for maximum numbers. Now, there is a term for this that is called utilitarianism. Uh, we will study it somewhere else, but for the moment, all the governments intend to be utilitarian in their approach. When I say utilitarian, it simply means, just know this and note it down somewhere. Utilitarianism means maximum good for maximum numbers. It is an antonym for totalitarian, which means one man, one show. Whatever one guy says, everyone else follows. So totalitarian is when one guy says and the everyone else follows. Contrary to it, utilitarian is maximum good for maximum numbers. So governments these days claim to be utilitarian when they make policies. So see the second para. Uh, you are wondering how governments manage to do all this and why it is necessary for them to do so. When human beings live and work together, there need to be some amount of coordination so that decisions can be made. The thing is that everyone differs in their approach. So if there is a different approach to everything, there will be a complete chaos. That is why, as I said, we have outsourced some of our decision making process to the government, and it can make decisions, it can take decisions on behalf of all of us. So some rules have to be made that apply to everyone. There is a need to control resources and to protect the territory of a country so that people can feel secure. So government do this on behalf of their people by exercising leadership, taking decisions, and implementing these among all the people living in their territory. So not one government does everything. There are several levels of the government, one after the other after the other. And let us try to understand what are the different levels of the government. The government works at different levels, at the local level, at the level of the state, and at the national level. When I say local level, see, there has been a constitutional amendment to this effect, which we shall study in great details later on. 72nd and 73rd and 74th Amendment, the Panchayati Raj and the Urban Local Body. This is also called democratic decentralization. Now, attempts were made for panchayats in the decades of 50, but the law was passed when Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister of India, the 73rd, 74th Amendment regarding panchayats. So, panchayats are what? Panchayats look after the villages in India. That is why panchayat is at here. You can see the cursor at the local level. Then at the level of state, we have a state government. At national level, we have the government of India. So there are certain things on which government of India will make policies and take decisions on, like the security of India, the foreign policy of India. There are certain things on which state governments will make policies and take decision on, like the law and order within the state, the education policy, the health, the agricultural issues. And then there are other micro level things on which the local level, that is the panchayats, will take a call on. What they are, what are the different lists, we shall see these things later, not in this class 6th NCERT. As it's written here, local level means in your village, town, or locality. State would mean that which covers an entire state like Haryana, Assam, Andhra Pradesh, or Telangana. And national, of course, the entire country at the India level. So here's the map given of different states. You guys are here. I am here. So These are the different states. Currently, we have 28 states. Jammu Kashmir has been called off. The state status has been called off. So there will be a UT which will be decided later. There is this delimitation commission. We shall see these things later. Here is a footnote. Telangana is the 29th state of India on 2nd June 2014, and then 31st October 2019, state of JNK. So just a map of different administrative units within divisions within India. This is the 2011 map. So you see, apart from the 28 states, there is so much else to be done at the administrative level. That is why we need local governments as well. So laws and the government makes laws, and everyone who lives in the country has to follow these. This is the only way governments can function. Yes, just like the government has the power to make decisions, similarly it has the power to enforce the decisions. Of course, if you don't follow the law, you will be punished. For example, there is a law that says that all persons driving a motor vehicle must have a license. So any person caught driving a vehicle without a license can either be jailed or fined a large sum of money. Now the rules have changed and the fines are of course very huge. So it's better to carry the license with us. Without these laws, the government's power to make decisions is not of much use. Of course, uh, if you cannot enforce these laws, then what is the use of these laws? That is why government has the authority to punish those who violate the laws, and rightly so. In addition to any action that government can take, there are also steps that people can take if they feel that a particular law is not being followed. If a person feels, for example, that they were not hired for a job because of their religion or caste, he or she may approach the court and claim that the law is not being followed. The court can then give orders about what should be done. So if someone is discriminated because of his or her caste or religion at workplace or any other place, then he or she can approach the courts to correct this. How, that we shall see when we will study fundamental rights. Now, what is the type of government? It depends on the type of government, that there is in a country. Like it depends on country what will be a type of governments. Like in India, we have democracy. Democracy is of the people, for the people, and by the people, where we elect our representatives. Democracy is where people elect their representatives. So we are governed by our chosen elected people. They do this through elections. Every 5 years, general election takes place in which we vote for a particular person and elect them. Once elected, these persons form the government, and in a democracy, the government has to explain its actions and defends its decision to the people. Second, another form can be monarchy. When there were kings and queens and prince and princess, monarch, king or queen has the power to make decisions and run the government. Monarch may have a small group of people to discuss matter with, like the current prime minister has a council of ministers. Similarly, the monarch used to have some mantris or a close group, like something that can be compared to the current day union cabinet or the council of ministers, with whom he can discuss matters. Final decision will taken by the monarch. Yes, monarch means the king. So we don't have monarchies now. Some countries we have monarchs, like in England, there is queen, but that is constitutional monarchy. That's not absolute monarchy. Absolute monarchy was found in world during medieval times, in ancient times, when there were kings and they had the bucks used to stop at the monarch, at the king itself. Whatever he or she used to decide, that were the final words. Like the Louis XVI, famous. When you will study French Revolution, you will come across this person, and he said that I am the rules and my words are law. See, what is the authority that is emanating from these sentence? I am the rule and my words are law. Absolute monarchy. There is no redressal. There is no remedy available. Now we don't have that. Even in countries like England, which I said has a monarch, queen is there, or Saudi, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, it is. They have a king, they have a prince. Bhutan, they have a king. But these are constitutional monarchs, which means that their power is limited by the constitution. of that very country. They are not absolute monarchs. Their power to function is limited by the constitution of that very country. So we shall see these things later on. So unlike monarchy, in democracy, kings and queens do not have to explain their action or defend their decisions that they take. Currently, whatever the government of India does or the government of a particular state does, they are answerable to the people. They have to justify that. So if government brings a particular law, government has to say that why we are bringing this law. Or if government scraps a particular law, a particular law is done away with, then government has to say that this is an irrelevant law, that is why we are getting rid of it. They have to explain this to people. A monarch has to explain no one, not the constitutional monarch of current times, but the absolute monarchs of medieval and ancient times. They were not answerable. Okay, they could do and get away with anything. That is why democracy is always preferable than monarchy. Let us see ahead what the chapter says. There are a few small questions. Democratic government. India is a democracy. This achievement is the result of a long and eventful struggle of the Indian people. There are other places in the world where people have also struggled to have democracies. You now know that the main feature of a democracy is that the people have the power to elect their leaders. This is the greatest part, that we choose who will lead us, who will rule over us. So in a sense, a democracy is ruled by the people. The basic idea is that people rule themselves by participating in the making of these rules. Democratic governments in our times are usually referred to as representative democracies because these people are representing us. That is why it is called representative democracy. Here in representative democracies, people do not participate directly. We are not making all decisions for ourselves, but the governments are. But instead choose their representatives through an election process. So whenever general election happens in India, entire India is divided into 543 seats, the Lok Sabha. Okay, and every seat, like in Delhi where I am right now, there are 7 Lok Sabha seats. So people of Delhi will be represented by these 7 people in the Parliament of India. Something similar applies to your city, Hyderabad. It has an MP. So on behalf of the entire people of Hyderabad, the MP of Hyderabad will be sitting in the Parliament of India and taking decisions along with other 542 members. Okay, so here we have elected our representatives who will take decisions on our behalf. These representatives meet and they make this is the election process given. They make decisions for the entire population, as I said. These days, a government cannot call itself democratic unless it allows what it is known as universal adult franchise. Now, let us try to understand this term. It simply means anyone who is 18 years and above has a vote. Now, India did this in the first election itself of free India in 1951 and 52. The first election to independent India were conducted, and India granted universal adult franchise. That is, anyone who is 18 and above can cast his vote or her vote. Now, why is it called so? Because it is universal. It applies to everyone, adult, to all people. It does not matter whether you are 18 or 81. It does not matter whether you are illiterate or a PhD. Does not matter which caste you belong to, does not matter which religion you belong to, which region you belong to, your economic status. Nothing matters. The very fact that you are an adult and a citizen of this country, you have one vote, irrespective of any of your credential. This is called universal adult franchise. European countries and USA took approximately more than 100 years to grant this universal adult franchise to its citizens. We did it in the first election year in 1951-52. So see, those democracies who claim to be older than in modern times than India, they took so much time to evolve this very process, universal adult franchise. On the contrary, India granted this universal adult franchise to its citizens right in the first elections, 1951 and 52. And irrespective of whatever your credentials are, you have one vote. This is what it implies. It's not always like that. Can you believe that there was a time when governments did not allow women and poor to participate? And that's why just now I said that USA and Europe did not allow this. In their earliest form, government only allowed only men who owned property and were educated. Not all men who were having some privilege, who owned property and were educated to vote. So the women, the poor, the propertyless, and the uneducated were not allowed to vote. They were just disenfranchised. There was no universal adult franchise, and the country was governed by the rules and regulation that these few men made. Of course, not everyone is being elected, so a particular group is being elected, and that particular group will work for particular section of people. So before independence in India, only a small minority was allowed to vote, and they therefore came together to determine the fate of the majority. Several people, including Gandhiji, were shocked at the unfairness of this practice and demanded that all adults have the right to vote. This is called universal adult franchise. We have already seen it. And then there is this paragraph written in the magazine Young India by Gandhiji in 31. I cannot possibly bear the idea that a man who has got wealth should have the vote, but that a man who has got character but no wealth or literacy should have no vote, or that a man who works honestly by the sweat of his brow day in and day out should not have the vote for the crime of being a poor man. Of course, this was very discriminatory. That is why we don't have such provisions right now. So this is what we have discussed in this chapter. Basic idea is what is universal adult franchise. Everyone who is 18 and above has a vote, irrespective of his or her any credential. The only credential is that you are 18 or above. Okay. Next thing is democracy, a form of government. We choose our people who will rule. That is what is decided by the people through periodic elections. Contrary to it, monarchy. What is monarchy? A king. See, monarchy is hereditary. King will have child, the prince will become the next king. You and me won't have a choice. Not that in democracy. Okay, we can never say that the current prime minister is a bachelor. So maybe the earlier prime minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, he had three daughters. He has three daughters. So we never say that one of the daughter will become the next PM. It's not a hereditary monarchy. So people are devoid of choice who will rule over them in monarchy. In democracy, it is not so. The earlier government was voted out, and now we have a different government. This government too shall someday be voted out. Maybe the prime minister will change, right? So this is how democracies elect their right, exercise their right to elect people. No other form of government allows this, and monarchy absolutely does not allow that, because you have a hereditary monarchies function on what is called blue blood. Blue blood means not that the color of their blood is blue, it means royal blood. Whenever we hear blue blood, it means royal blood. So the royal blood lineage will continue further. Like you see, I told you about Louis XVI in France, Bourbon dynasty. Now see, he was 16th, which means there would have been 15 Louis. So a gradual succession was followed. So this chapter deals with only two forms of government, so I'll not go into the other forms. We shall see those things in due course of time. So I hope you understood. If there is an issue, please let me know. Wish you all a very happy studying module from us. Take good care. Bye.